All right, today you should have your map and your book. Turn to page 63, I believe. I'll bring up your map here. Yeah. And you should have a couple of dead guys on your crew. You should have Tom and Alan crossed off over here. They were good guys and they're dead, right? You should have 6 guys on the boat, 5 unknown, and 1 is Israel Hands. I did have up here, when you walked in, the payment you're going to receive, that you're able to spend. If you've been tweeting, each of the doubloons you get for each tweet is worth $250. The goal is to be able to purchase everything, but if all you want to do is buy pickles over and over and over again, that's up to you. All right? I'll have that up a little bit later. Today we're going to read together chapter 15, and then we're going to have a radio broadcast speed us up and get us through chapters 16 and 17 so we can stay on track with the pace for the day. Somebody stole my book. That's not mine. Oh well, I'll take it. So we're on page 63, right? Mm-hmm. Question. And we'll have time later. Page 63. It says the man of the island. Remember, yesterday he was running from Long John up to the Rabbit Ear Pass, right? The Rabbit Ear Hill. There's 2 craggy peaks up there, and as he's running, he stops, and his heart starts to race even harder. From the side of the hill, which was here steep and stony, a spout of gravel was dislodged, fell rattling and bounding through the trees. All these rocks fall down. My eyes turned instinctively in that direction, and I saw a figure leap with great rapidity behind the trunk of a pine. What it was, whether a bear, or a man, or a monkey, I could in no wise tell. It seemed dark and shaggy. More I knew not, but the terror of this new apparition brought me to a stand. We're on page 63, Tyler. So, we've got a Sasquatch up there, or something, and it's freaked him out. I was now, it seemed, cut off upon both sides. Behind me, the murderers. Before me, this lurking nondescript. And immediately I began to prefer the dangers that I knew to those I knew not. Silver himself appeared less terrible in contrast with this creature in the woods. And I turned on my heel and looked sharply behind me, over my shoulder, and began to retrace my steps in the direction of the boats. He's heading back down this way. He's starting to freak out. But instantly the figure reappeared, and making a wide circuit, began to head me off. I was tired at any rate, but had I been fresh as when I rose, I could see it was still in vain for me to contend in speed with such an adversary. This thing is fast. There's no way I'm going to beat this thing. From trunk to trunk, the creature flitted like a deer, on man-like 2 legs. But unlike any man that I had ever seen, stooping almost double as it ran. Yet a man it was. I could no longer be in doubt about that. What's this guy doing? I began to recall what I heard of cannibals. I'm about to get eaten. I was within an ace of calling for help. Long John, come kill me before this guy eats me. But the mere fact that he was a man, however wild, had somewhat reassured me. And my fear of Silver began to revive in proportion. I don't want to go back to Long John. I stood still, therefore, and cast about for some method of escape. And as I was thinking, the recollection of my pistol flashed into my mind. I forgot. I'm packing. As soon as I remembered I was not defenseless, courage glowed again in my heart, and I set my face resolutely for this man of the island and walked briskly toward him. Bring it, buddy. I'm ready. I was concealed by this time behind another tree trunk, but he must have been watching me closely, for as soon as I began to move in his direction, he reappeared and took a step to meet me. Then he hesitated, drew back, and then came forward again. And at last, to my wonder and confusion, he threw himself on his knees and held out his clasped hand in supplication like, ah! And that at once I stopped. "Who are you, Ben Gunn?" he answered, and his voice sounded hoarse and awkward like a rusty lock. "I'm poor Ben Gunn, I am. I haven't spoke with a Christian these 3 years." I could now see that he was a white man like myself, and that his features were even pleasing. Like, hey, this is a good-looking guy. His skin, wherever it was exposed, was burnt by the sun. Even his lips were black, and his fair eyes looked quite startling in so dark a face. Of all the beggarmen that I had seen or fancied, he was the chief for raggedness. This is the most raggedy homeless guy I've ever seen. Yeah.
Why were his lips black?
They were sunburnt. For 3 years he's been there. That's what he says. He was clothed with the tatters of old ship's canvas and old sea cloth. And this extraordinary patchwork was all held together by a system of the most various and incongruous fastenings. Brass buttons, bits of stick, and loops of terry gaskin. About his waist he wore an old brass-buckled leather belt, which was the one thing solid in his whole accoutrement. All of his clothes were like held together by string and leaves, and he's kind of a weird, hairy-looking guy, but he does have a nice belt. 3 years? Were you shipwrecked? Nay, mate, marooned. I had heard the word, and I knew it stood for a horrible kind of punishment, common enough among buccaneers, in which the offender is put ashore with a little powder and shot, guns, ammo, and left behind on some desolate and distant island. Marooned 3 years ago, and lived on goats since then, berries and oysters. Wherever a man is, says I, a man can do for himself, but mate, my heart is sore for Christian diet. You might happen to have a piece of cheese about you now. No? Well, many's the long night I've dreamed of cheese, toasted mostly, and woke up again, and here I were. If ever I can get aboard again, you shall have cheese by the stone. All this time he'd been feeling the stuff of my jacket, smoothing my hands, looking at my boots, and generally, in the intervals of his speech, showing a childish pleasure in the presence of a fellow creature, like, is this guy real? Like, no way. I'm not dreaming this, am I? But at my last words, he perked up into a kind of startled slyness. If ever you get aboard again, says you, why, now, who's to hinder you? Not you, I know, was my reply. That right you was, he cried. Now, you, what do you call yourself, mate? Jim. Jim, says he, quite pleased apparently. Well now, Jim, I've lived that rough, as you may be ashamed of to hear. But now, for instance, you would think I had a pious mother. You wouldn't think I had a pious mother, to look at me. You don't think I would have a very good mother by looking at me, do you? And he was like, why no, not in particular. Yeah, you don't look like you were raised very well. You're not doing so hot, buddy. Well, said he, but I had a remarkable pious. And I was a civil, pious boy, and could rattle off my catechism that fast, as you couldn't tell one word from another. I had a really good mother. I even knew my catechism. I was a great guy. Question. Pious means religious, good, charitable. Yeah.
When he said, like, what does it mean when he's like Christian food and stuff?
I haven't had a diet that was,
Fresh?
England was considered to be a Christian state or a Christian country, and so it's saying I haven't had food that was like cooked and taken care of, and like Christians allegedly have good food ways of treating food, and he's been eating goats, if you'll find out a little later, goats and berries and just weird stuff, not a normal diet that he was raised on. All right? They are. Yeah. It's just a way of speaking. It's not like anything else he says that really makes much sense either, though, right? But he says, I had a great mom. And so it's just too, I didn't really mean to turn out like this. And here's what it comes to, Jim. And it begun with a check farthing on the blessed gravestone. I was kicking over gravestones, and that's what it begun with, but it went further than that. And so my mother told me to predict the whole thing she did. Oh, the pious woman. She told me I was going to turn into nothing. because of all the bad things I was doing. But it was Providence that put me here. Providence. Why is it capitalized? It's a name. Providence. Providence is another word for God. God and fortune and some sort of fate put me here. Providence put me, does that put me here? I thought it all out on this here lonely island, and I'm back on to piety. It's like, you know what I thought about it? I don't want to be a bad guy anymore. I want to be a good guy now. I got stuck here to be taught a lesson, to be a good boy. I thought it all out here on this old lonely island, and I'm back on piety. You don't catch me tasting rum so much, well, but it's just a thimbleful for luck, of course, the first chance I have. I'm bound I'll be good, and I see the way too, Jim. And I'm rich. I now felt that the poor fellow had gone crazy in his solitude, and I suppose it must have shown the feeling in my face, for he repeated the statement, "Rich, rich!" I says, and I tell you what, I'll make you a man. Jim, Jim, you'll bless your stars, you will. You was the first that found me. And at this, there came suddenly a lowering shadow over his face, and he tightened his grasp upon my hand and raised a forefinger threateningly before my eyes. "Now, Jim, you tell me true. That ain't Flintship," he asked. And at this, I had a happy inspiration. I began to believe that I had found an ally. And I answered him at once. "It's not Flintship, and Flint's dead. But I'll tell you true, as you asked me, there are some of Flint's hands aboard. Worse luck for the rest of us. Not a man with one leg," he grasped. "Silver, Silver, that was his name. He's the cook and the ringleader, too." He was still holding me by the wrist, and at that he gave it quite a ring. "If you was in my Long John, I'm as good as pork, and I know it. But where was you, do you suppose?" I had made up my mind in a moment, and by way of answer, told him the whole story of our voyage and the predicament in which we found ourselves. He heard me with the keenest interest, and when I had done, he patted me on the head. Pause. If I'm Ben Gunn, you're all Jimmy Jane. What are the things you need to tell me to catch me up to speed? A little bit of a recap here. Where are we? I was surprised today by some people who had no idea what to tell me. What would you need to tell Ben Gunn to get him up the pace? Give me one thing, Justin.
That Long John is following, or trying to find them on the island.
Okay, Long John's trying to find him on the island. Yep.
The thing about rebelling?
There was a mutiny on the boat. Yeah.
He wants to kill me.
Long John wants me dead.
When you turn to that, tell them how they got to the...
Yeah, what would you tell him about that?
Tell them about how, like, they found, like, the mountain stuff and about all the stuff that happened back at the place.
Yeah, like, hey,
Skeleton.
Billy Bones showed up. I found his map. What else?
Pretty much everything from the beginning of the book till now.
Isn't that kind of a tricky way of me to find out whether you've been paying attention for the last 15 chapters? Right? Yeah, everything. The whole story. Right? Anybody surprised by anything you just heard? What's that?
Throw the book at him.
Read it.
I was surprised by some people who couldn't answer some questions. Like, how did they find the island?
There was a map.
And I'm like, are you seriously not able to answer that? I am not a teacher. So, please, or thank you, I should say, for most of you, sticking with me. Yeah?
I'm wondering how he's rich.
Huh?
I'm wondering how he's rich.
Oh, yeah, why would he be rich?
The treasure's on the
He found
island.
the treasure.
Well, he knows the treasure's there, right?
Mhm.
Or there's got to be something about the treasure. Good. Yeah?
Wait, so how does he know, like, Flint and Long John? And
Ah!
stuff?
He was part of the crew.
He was marooned by somebody else, though.
And if he was left there to teach himself a lesson, were they already there? Like, do they already know about it?
Let's see here. That's a great question to think about. Let's see if Ben Gunn answers that question for us. If you was sent by Long John, I'm as good as pork, and I know it. But where was you, do you suppose? That's where we ended. Tells the whole story. You're a good lad, Jim. And you're all in a clove hitch, ain't you? I just learned from Braden, that's a knot. A clove hitch is a knot. You're in this tight knot. Well, you just put your trust in old Ben Gunn. Ben Gunn's the man to do it. Would you think likely now that your squire would prove a liberal-minded one in case of help? him being in the clove hitch, as you remark. I told him the squire was the most of liberal man. Ah, but you see, I didn't mean give me a gate to keep and a shoe to livery clothes and such. That's not my mark, Jim. What I mean is, would he be likely to come down to the tune and say, 1,000 pounds amount of that money? That's as good as a man's own already. I'm sure he would. As it was, all hands were to share. It's like, he told me about the treasure. Hey, can I get like $1,000 out of that treasure? That's all I need, just a little bit. Yeah?
How does he know they have Squire?
Because he just told the whole story to me.
Oh.
Caught them all up to speed. All right? And as it was, all hands were to share. And a passage home. He gave with a look of good, great shrewdness. Why, the squire's a gentleman. And besides, if we got rid of the others, we should want to help work the vessel home. It's like, yeah, you can come with us. We'll need extra people if we get rid of those pirates. That'd be great if you'd help us. Ah, so you would. And he seemed very much relieved. Now, I'll tell you what. He went on. So much I'll tell you, and no more. I were in Flint's ship when he buried the treasure. He and 6 strong seamen. They was ashore nigh on a week, and us standing off and on in the old walrus. What? A walrus? Austin, what's a walrus?
An animal.
It is, but why is this one italicized?
Isn't the name of the ship?
It's the name of
Flint's ship.
Flint's ship. He says, hey, I was on Flint's ship when he and how many guys?
6.
6 took the treasure to bury it. He and 6 guys went to go bury the treasure, while I stayed on the boat, just like these guys, right? Some guys went on jolly boats and went on the island. Yes.
Was Billy, was it Billy Bones? Was he with the group that was the
I don't know. Let's keep reading. Question.
What's gonna happen when they come back and there's 2 guys missing?
Great question. What's gonna happen? I love these questions. How in the heck can this story keep going forward? One fine day, up went the signal, and here come Flint by himself in a little boat, and his head done up in a blue scarf. The sun was getting up, and a mortal white he looked about for cutwater, but there he was, you mind, and the 6 all dead and buried. How he done it, not a man aboard us could make out. It was battle, murder, and sudden death, leastways him against 6. Billy Bones was the mate. Long John, he was quartermaster. And they asked him where the treasure was. Ah, says he, you can go ashore if you like and stay, he says, but as for the ship, she'll beat up for more by thunder. That's what he said. Wait a minute, 6 guys? And him? Captain Flint went on there? Oh, help me bury it, boys. Bury it? Him on 6, he kills all 6. Comes out, rows the boat himself out to the walrus. Like, where's the gold? He goes, I buried it. You can go look for it if you want. We're going to get more treasure. You can be marooned out here if you want. Who knows the next time we'll come back. I'm like, you're kidding me. That's our treasure. So, everybody wants to know where their payment is, right? Well, and what was your question? Where was Billy Bones? He was on the walrus too.
Oh, okay.
And with Long John Silver and Blind Pew. We're all sitting there like, you just buried all the treasure and killed all of our friends? You gotta be kidding me. Flint was ruthless. Well, I was in another ship for just 3 years back, and we sighted this island. Boys, said I, here's Flint's treasure. Let's land and find it. The captain was displeased at that, but my messmates were all of a mind and landed. Hey, I was on a different boat just 3 years ago, on the bottom of page 66. Just 3 years ago, and I was like, hey, I recognize that island. Come on, if we stop there, we're going to be rich. Well, it can't be that hard to find. The captain was displeased at that, but my messmates were all of a mind and landed. 12 days they looked for it, and every day they had a worse word for me. Until one fine morning, all hands went aboard. As for you, Ben Gunn, says they, here's a musket, they says, and a spade and a pickaxe. You can stay here and find Flint's money for yourself, they says. They ditched him. Well, Jim, 3 years I've been here, and not a bite of Christian diet from that day to this. But now you look here. Look at me. Do I look like a man before the mass knows this? You know, or I won't. Neither I says. And with that, he winked and pinched me hard. Just you mention them words to your squire, Jim. He went on. No, he weren't. Neither. That's the words. 3 years he was the man of this island. Light and dark, fair and rain. And sometimes he would maybe think upon a prayer, says you. And sometimes he would maybe think of his mother. So be it she's alive, you'll say. But the most part of Gun's time, this is what you'll say, the most part of his time was took up with another matter. And then you give him a nip, like I do. And he pinched me again in the most confidential manner. Then, he continued, then you're up, and you'll say this, Gun is a good man, you'll say, and he puts a precious sight of confidence, a precious sight, my man, in a gentleman born and in these gentlemen of fortune, having been one himself. Well, I said, I don't understand one word you've been saying. Anybody else confused? He's basically saying, put in a good word for me. Tell him that I'll do anything I can. I don't want to be a pirate anymore. Yeah?
Was Black Dog on the ship too?
Black Dog was on the ship too, the Walrus. All these guys, all the motley crew were on the Walrus. Yeah?
So how many guys were on the Walrus?
I don't know a number for sure, but I know that we have at least 15 or 16 on this boat right now that are bad guys. But that's neither here nor there, for how am I to get on board? It's like, it doesn't matter. I can't get on board. We talked about that yesterday. I can't get on a boat. I can't get on there. Hey, guys, I just went walking. I heard some gunshots. I'm sure that was cool. Let's get on. Let's go out to this Hispaniola. No. Long John Silver's going to kill me. I can't swim out there. It's almost half a mile. I can't swim that far. That's the hitch for sure. Well, there's my boat that I made with my 2 hands. I keep her under the white rock. It's the worst that comes to worst. We might try that after dark. Ha! What's that? For just then, although the sun had still an hour or two to the run, all the echoes of the island awoke and bellowed to the thunder of a cannon. Oh, at 5:30, you're supposed to fire the gun and say, hey, come on back. But it's like, it's not 5:30 yet. You hear a... What the heck was that? Take a moment and draw a white rock on the eastern shore. And we're just going to call it the Goat Boat. The Goat Boat. They've begun to fight! I cried, follow me! And I began to run towards the anchorage, my terrors all forgotten, while close at my side the marooned man in his goatskins trotted easily and lightly. It's like, I'm running as fast as I can, and this guy's just like, like, are you kidding me? And then, he can't shut up. He's like, laugh, laugh, says he. Keep to your left hand, man, Jim. Under the trees with you. Oh, and there's where I killed my first goat. They don't come out here no more now. They're all mast-headed on their mountains for the fear of Benjamin Gunn. Oh, there's the cemetery. Cemetery, he must have meant. You see the mounds? I come here and prayed nows and thens, and when I thought there might be a Sunday that would be due, it weren't a chapel, but it seemed more solemn-like. And then you says Ben Gunn was short-handed. No chapel, nor so much as a Bible on a flag, you says. Well, it's like, what are you talking about? So he kept talking as I ran, neither expecting nor receiving any answer. The cannon shot was followed after a considerable interval by a volley of small arms. So there's these tiny little arms getting thrown back and forth over a net. No. Volley of arms is arms fire, or guns being shot back and forth at each other. Another pause, and then, not a quarter mile in front of me, I beheld the Union Jack flutter in the air above a wood. Oh, the English flag is flying over the trees? What in the world is going on? So, like I said, we're going to listen to the next 2 chapters on this radio broadcast. It's going to help you, it's going to kind of sum up where we are for a minute and a half, and then talk about a flashback within this story. Remember, Jim ran off here and he met Ben Gunn and is running back. Well, what happened the whole time he was running? The other 6 guys are stuck on the boat. That's what we're going to hear about in the next 2 chapters. Question,
Okay, you said there's an English flag or whatever.
Yeah, in the woods.
We talked about that though, like if we found it, the king could put his flag on it.
Uh-huh, that's right. That they would hang the flag and claim it for England, right?
Yeah.
That's true, we did talk about that. All right, here we go. I'm going to try and help you keep pace. You're not reading along,
Treasure
you're
Island
listening.
By Robert
All right, this
Louis
is not a story, a read along, it's a
The
listen.
stockade on
And
the
you need to
island.
keep track with your map and some of the people on the back. Other people started to write down what they might tweet so that they can be shopping later. So you might want to be writing down what you might be tweeting. Maybe your character is not even mentioned in these chapters. They still would have something to say.
I, Jim Hawkins, together with Squire Trelawney and Dr. Livesey, set sail from Bristol aboard the Hispaniola in search of the Treasure Island and our fortune. What we did not discover until it was much too late was that most of our crew were pirates, under the leadership of our one-legged cook, Long John Silver. Silver and the crew were planning to kill us and take the treasure for themselves.
I give you my vote. Death, I say it all. I don't want no chance of them coming back to England and accusing me of mutiny.
Soon after our arrival at the island, Captain Smollett, fearing that the crew would rise up in mutiny there and then, had sent most of the men for an afternoon ashore. I had gone with them and seen John Silver murder one of the few loyal crewmen in cold blood. Soon after that, however, I had had the good fortune to fall in with Ben Gunn. At first, I took him for a wild man of the woods, but I very soon realized that he was a poor soul who had been marooned on the island some years before. Meanwhile, Dr. Livesey and
All right,
Squire
now
Trelawney
here's chapter
had stayed
16.
aboard the Hispaniola with the Squire's own loyal servants, as well as some half a dozen mutinous seamen that Silver himself had left behind to watch over matters.
I'm alarmed for the lad's safety, Trelawney. I should not have gone ashore alone with them. It was very foolhardy.
They were in a grim mood. But would he have been any safer here? Those who stayed aboard, what are they doing?
Sitting grumbling under a sail in the forecastle.
The heat is too much for them, I think. And what of the shore boats?
I saw them from the deck. They made fast ashore. There was a man sitting in each to guard them.
But they haven't taken all the small boats, only 2 of them. Then I think some of us should go ashore and try to find out what's happening. I can't bear this waiting.
Your servant Hunter and I will go. There is a stockade marked on the chart of the island. I would like to find its exact whereabouts, what sort of building it might be. It sounds as if it might be a fortress of some kind.
You mean it might be useful to us?
Exactly. But you must stay aboard. They still have some respect for you and the captain. You have the arms and the powder here. I'll take a brace of pistols with me.
All right, so Dr. Livesey and Hunter are going to go to the stockade that we drew on our map yesterday. Like, we got to go find this thing. It's on the map. We've got to go find it.
The doctor and Mr. Hunter, the Squire's servant, rowed ashore in a small boat. There was a little wooded headland on the coast of the island, with the stockade marked as being on the far side of it. The pair in the little boat therefore rowed around this headland as quickly as they could. And although they were still visible from the Hispaniola out in the bay, they very soon found themselves out of sight of the crewmen who were guarding the shore boats on the beach.
Look, sir. There would be a good landing place.
So it would. Is it a building of some sort? Is that what we're looking for?
I would say it was a stockade, sir. A little fortress made of wood.
We'll go ashore and explore.
A fortress it was, as they very soon discovered, built some years before by the pirates who had long frequented this place. A spring of clear drinking water rose at the top of a little hill. A stout log house had been built on top of the hillock enclosing the spring, and there was a clear space all around the house, and then a 6-foot-high fence, sturdy and without door or opening encircling it. It looked like an excellent place to lie up in and defend yourself against all comers, and so it proved to be.
This is the place for us, I think, Hunter.
Yes, sir.
We must go back to the schooner immediately. Better if we can.
What have you found ashore, Doctor?
We've had the great good fortune to find the stockade marked on the chart. It will provide us with fresh water and shelter, and we can defend ourselves there. If Hunter brings the boat around under the stern port, we can load her with powder tins, muskets, and all the supplies we can manage.
In that case, you and I, Trelawney, must confront the men on deck. Otherwise, they'll surely try to stop us from escaping.
I'll have my pistols well primed before I do.
The squire and Mr. Smollett, well armed with pistols, managed to threaten the remaining crew members into submission, while the doctor and Mr. Hunter ferried more supplies ashore.
So they use the captain and Dr. Livesey, or Squire, pull out their guns and get all 6 of those bad guys that are on the ship that you have anchors next to, has guns out, and then have them at gunpoint and say, you don't move, while they do a few more ferry ships taking things to
All
the
in all,
stockade.
the shore boat made 3 trips. The third and last trip was different from any of the others, for the boat was overloaded. They had more men with them than they'd expected, for one of the mutineers left aboard the Hispaniola, Abraham Gray by name, deserted his villainous companions and came over to join the squire's party.
I've made up my mind. I'm with you, sir. Then let's be off.
Oh, wait.
Quickly now, before they try to stop us.
Hold on. Gotta cross off somebody who was on the boat. Pirate 9 for me is now Gray. He joins the good guys. Gray joins the good guys.
This last journey was not easy. For one thing, the tide had turned, and landing was going to be difficult. And for another, the pirates left on board the Hispaniola had alerted the men ashore who were now running along the coast to try and intercept the squire's party before they could reach the sailor.
So the guys on the boat, the bad guys, 5 of them now, are able to connect with the guys on shore and be like, they just took Gray, they're leaving, go get them. All right? So the guys on shore are now running, trying to head them off. There's one of these boats. It's heading off this way. All right? Trying to get over here from the Hispaniola. What? Yeah, you draw one of those boats coming over here. Towards the stockade.
We cannot keep her head for the shore, sir. The tide keeps pushing her off.
She's too heavily laden. There are 5 of us now, and the ebb tide is running strongly.
We'll never manage to get ashore.
We must just make for wherever we can. Oh, Lord, the gun! We forgot to disable the big gun aboard the Hispaniola.
They could never get the gun ashore, Captain Smart.
No, but look astern, Doctor. We left the shot and the powder behind. They can take pot shots at us from the Hispaniola itself. And that's just what they're going to do by the looks of it.
Israel Hans was Captain Flint's gunner. They'll bombard us for sure.
And we're a first-class target. Now, who is the best shot amongst us?
Mr. Trelawney, he's as good as any I've met.
Squire Trelawney, can you pick off one of those men aboard with a pistol shot?
I can try. I'll aim for Israel Hans.
Stand by to keep the boat steady when he aims.
They're pointing the big gun at us.
Now, Trelawney, now!
Missed him. He has the luck of the devil. He stooped at just the right moment.
But you hit one of them. Now the men on shore have spied us at last.
Look!
Put a heart next to pirate number 6.
They'll try to cut us off
It's
as they
injured.
can.
They'll have a long, hot run of it then.
Gentlemen, we have to get to the stockade and...
They put a heart next to pirate number 6. He's injured. He shot one of them.
Quickly! No matter if we're swamped, we'll wade in.
They're preparing to fire on us from the Hispaniola.
We're an easy target.
My lady's maid couldn't miss.
Row! Row! We're not far from our landing place! Row now!
Missed. We've taken in too much water. The water's shallow here. Quickly, men. Let's get ashore.
Saw an X on the boat. It just sunk, and they had to run out of the boat onto the shore.
They ran for the stockade, carrying what they could with them, while the pirates hurried from the landward side to try and cut them off. But the squire was ready for them, with his pistols well primed.
Got one. He's down.
The others are
Cross
fled
off
to
a
the
guy who was
forest.
on the island. He's gone.
All of us. Go and see if he's injured.
I can see from here. He will rise again. One
And
last
then cross off
battle.
pilot 17.
Red Rose, oh my old manservant, Red
Ruth is down.
He's fallen.
The shot came from the forest. Let's get him into the log house and quickly. See what I can do for him.
He's been in my service for years. I should not have brought him with me.
Don't blame yourself. You didn't force him to come.
Let's see. Is there anything you can do?
I'm afraid he's already gone, Trelawney.
Oh, my poor old servant.
Don't you take on, sir. All's well with him. No fear for a hand that's been shot down doing his duty to captain and owner. Dr. Livesey, can I speak to you for a moment?
Yes, Captain.
I've raised our flag to show the pirates that we're in possession of their fortress. Tell me, did the squire here leave instructions that if we were not back by a certain date, we were to be followed?
That's true enough.
So how soon can we expect this help to come?
Oh, Captain, it's a matter of months rather than weeks. We've a long wait, I'm afraid, if we're counting on outside help.
Then we're pretty close hold. As for powder and shot, we'll do well enough. But the rations are very short. So short, Dr. Livesey, that although it pains me to say it, we're perhaps as well without that extra mouth to feed. Especially if by some chance Jim should come back to us. Oh, blaze away with your big gun, my lads! You've little enough powder already, and you waste what you have trying to hit us at this distance.
Captain, the stockade is quite invisible from the ship. It must be the flag they're aiming for. Would it not be wiser to take it in?
Strike my colors? No, sir, not I. It will raise our spirits to have our flag flying, and besides, it will show our enemies how much we despise them.
During this time, I was with Ben Gunn.
All right. Why was the flag an important thing?
Just show them what they're fighting for.
Yeah, and what happened at the end of what we read?
Oh, they were coming up upon the flag.
Yeah, Jim saw the flag, and so now Jim knows where to go. All right. So what I need to do now is find out what crew you're in. You remember you have 3 tweets, because we have 15, 16, and 17. 3 tweets due for Monday.